We're live. Oh my God, this internet is so much better. Hello. Welcome to episode 7 of Range Woman, the variety show. So I'm your host, Lala Angela Wang. For those of you who's been wondering why I've been doing this and what is Range Woman really all about. So Range Woman to me is women who are able to fulfill multiple areas of their life, their identities, their passion, their projects with ease, flow, and pleasure. So as a inner child whisperer, and I decided to call myself the head of talent in Range Woman HQ. Really, it is my inspiration to inspire women around the world to really follow their passion, really, and create a life of dreams beyond dreams. And that is why I've got this show, and that's why I'm coaching women around the world. And today I am so excited. Like, the energy is off the chart. You guys haven't seen us like before this whole thing. Energy is off the chart. I am going to introduce you guys to Paula Ivy, and I have nicknames for all of my guests, right? So I've decided to name you the Queen of Selfography.
Oh, I love it.
So Paula started the selfography movement, and really, I love it. I love it. I love your passion behind it, your motivation, inspiration behind it. It's really to inspire women to be comfortable with themselves in their own identity and build more self-confidence and really just be okay with being in their own skin. And this is all through selfies.
Selfies. Okay, I do have kids going to bed. Oh, wow. I just started an interview, buddy.
Ooh, we've got a little visitor here.
Love you.
Love you.
Okay.
Okay. Can you close the door?
Bye.
Thank you. Sorry. Also, a mum of 2. FYI.
So Paula, I'm going to jump straight in because you're not just the queen of selfography. You're also a mad fanatic when it comes to quests.
Oh, yes.
And you're crazy with your quests. Like, they're getting crazier and crazier, especially when you did this 30-day of swimming. What was the quest again? In the middle of winter, going for a swim every single morning. And I'm like, how does she even do it? I can't even dip my toes in it. So I'm going to let you tell us about what. Obviously, I interviewed Wendy last week, and to her, she said, Quest provides answers. And I want to know from your perspective, what does Quest actually mean to you, and why do you go with all these crazy quests? I'll let you talk. Well, I'm going to share this onto my personal profile on Facebook. So just keep talking, don't mind me.
All right, I can easily keep talking. That's fine. So quests, I've done a few quests. I've been doing quests for a few years. I just haven't been doing them consistently, but over the past few months, I've been doing them sort of back to back. So for me, a quest is it's around. Some people do a quest to form a habit around something. So if you're wanting to, say, some people might do a quest, like writing quest, because they want to write a book. Or Wendy's one was a beautiful one. It was the sunrise quest. She was going out to do sunrise activations every single morning. The most recent ones that I've done is what you mentioned, the 33-day winter swim quest. So that actually came to me. I'm a little bit crazy like that. I wasn't going swimming every day in winter, but I had gone swimming a few times in winter. And I mean, I live in Sydney. Well, we both live in Sydney in Australia. So like our winters are like, they're cold, but they're not like on a spectrum of winter around the world. They're not too cold. Like, we get a bit precious here about I'm not climatized for the cold. I hate the cold. So anything below 20 degrees Celsius for me is like a cold day, and I'm like, it's not good enough. Like, turn up the heat, please. So in winter here, it probably gets down to around 16, 14 degrees Celsius. So it's not, freezing cold, but the ocean gets pretty chilly. There's one pool here, because I live on the northern beaches in Sydney, and I was going to like the ocean pools. There was a few beaches I was actually going into the water, but mainly I was going into those like the ocean pools, because it meant that I could like dive in, submerge myself quite quickly, and then, you know, get out like a minute later. I wasn't like actually going for a swim for a few hours and like, you know, lapping it up. It was kind of like a submerging myself, waiting until my breathing regulated, and then I'd get out. So yeah, there's one pool here on the northern beaches that has a thermometer in the actual water, and I only realized maybe about halfway through the quest that that was actually there, because the lady pointed it out to me. And I was thinking, I kept doing like Google searches. I'm like, what's the temperature of the ocean today in Sydney? Like, what's the ocean temperature? And it kept coming up saying approximately 18 degrees. And I'm like, okay, so that's not like, you know, too bad. But then I was thinking about it, I'm like, okay, so the forecast says it's 14 degrees currently outside, but then the water's 18 degrees. Shouldn't it be warmer in the water than outside of the water? And I'm like, it's freaking freezing in the water. It's like jumping into a bucket of ice. I'm like, how does that make sense? And then I realized when I looked at the temperature gauge on the pool that day that the water was 10 degrees. I was like, whoa. And then I started doing a few swims in the actual ocean. And like, for some reason, those ocean pools are a lot cooler than what the actual ocean was. But it was so interesting. Like one day I'd go in and it would feel like ice, like just like ice, and then other days I'll jump in, I'm like, oh, actually it's not too bad today. So I think a lot has to do with like the currents and the tides and the weather outside and all of that sort of stuff. And I think towards the end I kind of got a bit addicted to it, because even though the moment before you jump in, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. Is the 33 days over yet? Because I don't want to do this anymore. But then as soon as I jumped in and I got that, I don't know if you've ever done cold swims before, but you get this rush of like energy through your body. And even though like it hurts to begin with, like it's like this, but then once your breathing regulates, it's like your whole body's like this. And it's magic. And you get out, and even though like you're freezing and you're like, hurry up, I want to get in like my clothes and stuff, it's like it just feels like your body just feels alive. So I kind of got addicted to that feeling. And of course, being a photographer, I was documenting that. So every day I was posting, you know, selfies of me swimming. So for me, the quests actually do a few things. So that quest came to me so actually technically I did 34 days in a row, because I got the idea for the quest and I'm like, oh, starting tomorrow I'm going to do 33 days of swimming in winter, last 33 days of winter, and it just happened to be 33 more days of winter left. So I was like, well, I like the angel numbers, and I was like, well, that's perfect. So for me, it's about doing the action, and it's about doing an action with the intention of you know, asking the questions, similar to what Wendy said. Like whenever I jump into the water, I'd ask myself a question. I'd be like, all right, cool, what's my next thing that I need to do today? Or you know, something around maybe something around like, you know, a product or a course or, you know, a body of work that I was creating, like asking questions around that, or asking questions around, you know, what's next, or what's, you know, big picture stuff. Each day it would be a different question. And I'd jump in and just ask the question, and sometimes the answers would come to me straight away, and sometimes they would come to me later in the day. But for me, the way that I see it is like, it's me showing up every single day to open up that space for, you know, answers to come through me, whether it's from, you know, a deeper part from within myself, or whether it's from, you know, some external source that feeds stuff to us, where we get these inspired ideas from, who knows? I believe it's a little bit of both. But yeah, that's what I see the quest as. It's really an action to show up each day, so that, you know, your soul, your muse, your genius, your, you know, the universe or whoever can see that, you know, oh, she's here, she's willing, she's wanting, she's, you know, she's here, she wants to expand, she wants to grow, she's willing to you know, receive more, so let's feed her some more stuff. So that to me is what the quests are about.
How do you even motivate yourself in the middle of winter Like, so at the moment I'm doing my sunrise quest in the morning, right? It's probably about 12 degrees outside, and all I'm doing is just go barefooted on grass. It's still cold.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do it?
Well, yeah, so I did the winter swim quest, and I was doing my winter swims after school drop off. So I've got 2 kids. One's in preschool, so he was with me for 3 days of the week. So it actually just became like a thing. Like, it was like, oh, we do school drop off, I go for my swim, we then go home. Like, I think if you think too much about it, it's just kind of like, oh no, I'm just doing this for 33 days. And you kind of like, it's just an action I'm doing for 33 days. It's not until I got to the pool and I was starting to, like, you know, take my clothes off, so I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But it was actually really cool because, having my son there actually helped, because he's 4, and every time we'd go for the swim, he loves going to the beach, so he'd be excited we're going to the beach, and then also he'd be there like cheering me on the side. He said, "Mommy, I love watching you swim. Go, all right, I'll count you down," and he'd count me down, and then he'd scream and yell for me and stuff. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I guess some days were definitely harder than others. The first sort of 5 days of the quest, we actually had amazing weather. So it was sunny. It was like actually quite warm for winter. And like, I jump in the water and I get out and be like, oh, actually, it's kind of nice. This is going to be an easy quest. And then it started to get really cold, and it rained for like a week. So I was going when it was windy and rainy and freezing cold. There was a few instances where I was like running like down to the pool. I'd jump in, have my towel around me, and just run back to the car, sort of thing. And I'd have these people be like,
what is she doing?
Did you go swimming? I'm like,
I just remember some of those photos because you can see the wind, you can see the grey, and I'm just like, oh my goodness me, how does she even do it? Do you find having, like, obviously that whole thing was documented through social media, through your photos. Do you think by posting those photos and literally announcing to social media, announcing to your mastermind, and having them supporting you helps? Because it's almost like you told the world that you're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Was there in any way, shape, or form you thinking, well, I said I was going to do it. It's kind of like embarrassing if I don't do it.
Definitely.
That's part of the motivation.
It's accountability. Because, I mean, I'm the type of person that, you know, I find it hard to stick to stuff that's quite repetitive. That's I like to finish things, but I like to go on a journey with stuff. Like, I like it when things are sort of, you know, we mix it up a little bit. So for me, doing the quests, I like to keep them short amount of time. So 33 days, 22, the last couple of ones that I've done were 22 days. So I did a sunrise quest for 22 days, and now I'm doing a self-portrait, like a classic self-portrait head and shoulders quest for 22 days. So I like to keep them shorter. I find some people really enjoy like really long, meaty ones. So for me, I find that that's working really well. Also announcing it to social media, and I guess also because I'm a photographer and I'm documenting this, getting the photos each day drives me, because I'm like, well, I take photos every day for, you know, social media and my business, and it's ultimately for myself, but it's what I use for my business. So yeah, it's kind of cool because people, they actually love coming on that sort of journey with you. Yeah. So I found that since I've started doing the quests, my posts and things have gotten a lot more engagement, and they're really popping because people are actually hanging out for, oh my gosh, what's the photo for today for this quest? Especially the winter swim one. People were like, oh my God, you did it again. This is like crazy. And then I did a sunrise quest as well. So that was the first 22 days of spring. I did the sunrise quest, and that was, I went to a beach each morning because on the East Coast here, we get the sunrise over the water, which is just magic. And that was amazing as well, to do the sunrise quest too, because I mean, I guess also the fact that you never know quite what you're going to get with the weather. And taking photos outside. So for me, that actually mixes up what I'm doing each day for the quest as well. So I guess, definitely telling people that I'm doing it and documenting it as well for you know, not only for social media, but for myself as well. And then after you do the quest and you look at all the photos together, it's so cool to see them as their own, because their own individual story, each one, like each day, but then you put it together and it's like this whole like collection of, you know, that quest, but then it's all these, it's like a whole bunch of little short stories type thing in a big book.
I can almost see you, like, whenever I'm talking to you, you know, and seeing your quest, it's almost, I can see those photos going into an art gallery and you having this exhibition of quests.
Oh, I love that. That would be amazing.
That would be so cool. I think that would be so awesome.
See, that would be really cool. Oh, guys. You do have floppy shoes. Oh my god. They're just getting ready for bed. Yeah. No. That would be amazing. I totally see that too. But then I have that voice in my head that goes, why would people want to come to an art gallery of photos of you? Like, to just be walking into this thing, it's like, it's just a whole bunch of like selfies of the one person.
But you know what though? Like, so many people, because I've taken your 30-day selforgraphy.
Yeah.
And so many of my friends, ever since I started doing them, they're like, how the fuck did you take all these photos? Who's your personal photographer? It's called my phone. No, but how do you take these photos? Go and follow Paula Ivy.
Yeah. But I guess that's the thing, right? Is that it's that's what I do, why I do what I do as well. Is like I do it for myself, but because I do it for myself and then I share it, it's like inspiring other people to do it for themselves too. And I guess like yeah, when we see other people doing something like that, which, you know, taking selfies every day is one thing, but then also, you know, feeling good in front of the camera and taking these photos where you can feel someone's joy and their connection to who they are in that moment. Like that's the inspirational part. And I think that's what a lot of people like, I want that. Like you're taking, like so many times I've had people say to me, you take the photos that everybody wants for themselves. And I was like, that's really big. Like that's, you know, I'm like, sometimes I have to pinch myself and I'm like, my job is to take photos of myself and like take photos of myself doing things like going swimming. I'm like, I love swimming. Like, that's kind of like, I'm like, what the, like, how is this a job? Like, how is this, you know, make it like, yeah. But
you get to do all your favorite things and yeah.
But I mean, that's the inspiration behind it. Or what I'm hoping that's going to inspire more people is like to do the things that you really love and document yourself doing them, because like that's you in your element. Like you're not going to get a more you photo or like, you know, you captured in a moment in your time in your life more genuinely than when you are actually doing something that you enjoy, that you're just having the best time ever. So if that's not inspiration to, get into your photos more, capture yourself more, and to actually do more of the things that light you up every day, then like how beautiful is that? So that,
We've got so many people commenting at the moment. Janine said hello. Janine was like, the ocean swim is so refreshing and she just gets tingles. Kenya also says, thanks for the reminder. I am definitely motivated to do the same. Yay! And Kelly says, amazing job, lady. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you all of you guys for your comments. Now, I want to go back to the beginning because obviously you were a photographer at the beginning.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration to create selforgraphy? How did the idea come about? Is what you are doing now inspiring other people? What the initial idea or the initial motivation behind creating selforgraphy, or has it kind of took on a life of its own and started to sort of grow and morph and
Oh, it's definitely taken on a life of its own as well. It's gone places that I didn't actually think that it would. When I had a business, I've had my own business for years and years and years, and I was doing photography. I was doing weddings, portraits. I was doing fashion and corporate stuff. Like I did pretty much everything photography related through my business, because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like, you know, find my groove. And I guess the closest I got to my groove with my business was doing I called them Minnie and Me sessions, which was like mamas and their kids. Like I absolutely loved that connection between a mother and child. Like it just fascinated me, and I loved doing the documentary style around that. And I would go into people's homes and I'd get them to like do things that they usually do. Like my photo shoots weren't like, you know, put on all the hair and makeup and go to like certain locations and have all the outfits and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, you could like, I encouraged people to have, you know, sort of changes of outfits and all that sort of stuff, but it was more rustic. It was more like at home, how you would be in this moment, doing things that you actually really enjoy that are really part of like what you guys do. But then I still kind of felt like, oh, this isn't quite it. Like, I don't know quite what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm a photographer. Like, I've been one since I was 8 years old. Like, it's my obsession. I know this is the tool that I get to use, but I wasn't quite sure about like the purpose of it. Like, what's the intention behind it? I couldn't quite like nail that. I was searching for it and couldn't quite find it. And then I had been friends with this lady online called Jana Kingsford for a few years, and I'd met her through B School, which is like a big online course for entrepreneurs, the Marie Forleo one. And we met through there in like 2011 or something, or 2012, whenever. I think it was 2011.
Wow, so you guys are like the OGs of B School.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was actually quite lost in that time. I actually was trying to ditch photography altogether, and I was, for some reason, going to start a tea business. I don't know. I'd met this woman called Jana, and I would follow her, and then I wouldn't follow her because like I was like, oh, she's really cool. But then she was very much like about, you know, routine, and because she had 3 kids, and she's like, you know, and cleaning and like doing all the things, and I'm like, yeah, nah, okay. And like I actually, and she knows this. She's one of my like closest friends now. But like, I was like, oh, like there's something about you, and like I really want to, you know, be friends with you and follow you, and you're inspiring me and stuff. But then like it was kind of like this disconnect.
Not the routines.
Yeah. And then anyway, I fell pregnant with my first, and it was actually a blessing in disguise, because when I fell pregnant with her, it was unexpected. We were actually planning our wedding, but we then had to put that back. But when I was pregnant with her, I had a complete aversion to tea. I couldn't drink tea anymore. I couldn't even stand the smell of it. So I was like, how can I start a tea business if I can't even drink the stuff? So I dropped everything. And then after I had her, I was feeling a bit lost. And anyway, just sort of got back into photography by doing, I ended up in 2016, I did a photo a day on Instagram, which was a photo a day in gratitude. So that kind of got me back into the documentary style of things. And I really loved it because it was just me documenting my story, which is always it's always been about. Even since I was a kid, like that's what I did with photography. I didn't create, you know, photo shoots. I documented what was happening around me and how I was feeling and what was going on. So it really helped me come back to that. And I was like, oh yeah, this feels really, really good. And then I'm pretty sure it was the following year. Yeah, it was the following year, Jana left with her kids and did the lap of Australia. And I was like, shut up. I've been dreaming of that for years. I'm like, what? So then I was like,
get used to it.
I was like, okay, no, I need to be friends with this woman. Anyway, so yeah, then I was like, okay. After a few months of watching her do that, I messaged her and I'm like, how are you doing what you're doing? I need to work with you. And I pretty much just started working with her one-on-one, like straight off the bat, because I was like, yeah, I just show me what you're doing because I want to do that. So she was like, okay, cool. What's your business? Like, how are we going to, like, you know, what's the business that's going to help you be able to do this? And I was like, well, I'm a photographer. I don't really know what my niche is like. And she was like, okay, what do you love to do? And I'm like, well, I like to document my own story, but like, who's going to pay me to do that? Like, I was like, that doesn't even make sense. That's not a thing. And she's like, well, maybe if you teach people to do that for themselves, that's a thing. And I'm like, that could be a thing. So then I just started teaching like how to take photos. And it started off with, because I was like in the thick of early motherhood and I just had my second. I was teaching a lot about, taking photos with you and your kids, like you actually being in the photo with your kid, because that's a big thing for mums especially, is like, I mean, even look at your own childhood and your own childhood photos, like how many photos are actually of you and your mum? It's usually your mum that's taking the photos, unless your dad's was really good at photography or, was the one taking the photo. Like I know I don't have a lot of photos of my mum in the photos with me. It's just usually just me. Because, your kids are so cute. You just want to capture them. And then you're like, you don't want to get in there as well. So that's kind of where it started from, and me just showing photos of like how I was taking photos with me and my kids. And then it just sort of grew from there. Like I just saw how powerful it is. And because I was doing it, before then I focused more on taking photos of everything around me rather than putting myself in the front of the camera. But that year of a photo and gratitude in 2016, when I look back over that year, I was like, oh, I was in like 2 photos out of a whole year. And I'm like, why aren't I in more of my photos? Like, why aren't I saying I'm grateful for me today? Because like, I'm grateful for, the ocean. I'm grateful for my kid. I'm grateful for like all these external stuff. So that's when like a shift like that sort of happened for me. And I started to focus on being in photos more. And that's when, I went through the whole like, oh, I don't like what I see. Oh, is that what I look like? Oh. Because we don't see ourselves.
No.
And so that's a big part of my work too, is like inspiring, especially women to be in their own photos, to celebrate who they are, but then also to help them through and hold them while they go through that awkward phase that happens at the beginning. It's kind of like, oh, I want to, but this is me. What? But what really gets me is when there's always a moment where women get to this point where like, oh, I see it. Like they haven't had to change anything. They haven't like had to, lose weight or have surgery or like completely change their appearance in any way. It's just like through repetition and through, just that willingness to see themselves. There comes a point where you actually do see it and it drops in like, oh, I am beautiful. Like I see that, because we all are. And it's just, we're just so not used to seeing ourselves that it's kind of like that. There's that shock almost, like that's me.
Yeah. It's like your post today, right? You had a side-on portrait of yourself and you said that we barely know what our side view looks like.
No, who knows what their profile looks like? Like you go here and I can't see myself in the mirror anymore. Like the only way you can get see your side profile is like in a video or in a photo. So that's kind of one of the weirdest things. It's like we know ourselves from seeing ourselves in the mirror. And when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see this front bit. We don't see all of like the dimensions and the shapes and the curves and all of that sort of stuff that we've got going on. So, when you're talking to somebody else in person, like they're always moving and they're moving around and like, it all like works. And you're like, yes, that's exactly what they look like. But then when you go to take photos, it's kind of like you see yourselves from all these angles that you've never seen before. And you go, is that me? And then other people are like, yeah, that's you. It's a great photo. Don't you love it? And you're like, that's what you think I look like? Like, it kind of like, it's just getting to know yourself on like this other level, which we don't actually, we can't physically see ourselves. It's really strange. Like we're gifted this beautiful body to have this life experience, but then we feel it and we see it and we like taste it and we touch it and all of that sort of stuff, but we don't actually see ourselves living it, which is,
But it's almost like you don't, when you don't see yourself living it, it's almost like there's a big chunk of it missing from the part of experiencing your own body, right? It's like you're in it so much, you don't actually get to, I don't know. It's almost like, so when I first started, or like, how often do you actually touch yourself, every part of you, and go, oh, is this what it feels like touching myself besides being in the shower?
Yeah, intentionally, like, yeah. It's so strange, isn't it? It's kind of like a lot of what I get with the women that I work with is that when they first start taking photos, they're like, I just feel so disconnected from my body. It's kind of like you are so in there and you feel everything, but then when you see it, you're like, oh, like it just feels like it's somebody else. And it's just really going on this journey, connecting like how you feel inside and how you're expressing yourself to how that visually looks, and piecing that together, because there's a moment where it happens, and I mean, some women it happens quite quickly, and others it's like this whole journey that we go on. There's so many different layers of so many different things that can be going on for people around their appearance and their bodies and how they feel and where they're at and all of these things, that it's just, and it's all beautiful. It's just, yeah, it like I say it's like exposure therapy. Like you have to keep exposing yourself to yourself in order for you to go, oh, okay, yeah. It's all, like I see it now because it's like our brains are wired for pattern and recognition, and you know, when something looks the way that it's supposed to, the way that we're expecting it to, that feels safe and it feels like soothing. But if something, like if we go and look at a photo of ourselves and it doesn't look how we're expecting it to look in our brain, and we look at it and we go, oh, it's not so much that it's not attractive, it's just that your brain's going, that's not what I thought. Is it safe? It's kind of like a survival.
It's like a shock, isn't it?
Like it's human instinct. It's not actually like, oh, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not, you know, thin enough, or I'm not whatever enough in this photo. It's actually that you were expecting something else. And it's kind of like it's just foreign to you. So yeah.
So I do with my clients, I do what I call shadow work. So that's like through meditation, we work on the inner work. And the way that I see your work is like you're doing shadow work through photography.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
And it's like you say, it's through exposure therapy, right? Because for me, it took me a long time to actually love myself, every inch of me. And so often in our society today, we often talk about self-love, but it's kind of like self-love is so overrated. We don't actually understand what fully accepting ourselves looks like.
Oh, yeah.
And so
everyone's like, just love yourself. Just love yourself. Love yourself.
Like, I'm going to go to a spa. I'm going to go for a massage. I'm going to go and rest early. But can you actually fully accept yourself? And I think the ultimate acceptance of ourselves is to be able to look at a full 360-degree photo of ourselves and go, I love this woman, every inch of it. There's no surprises. There's no shock. And that is so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Because it's just kind of opening up a whole different dimension of it, though, because we can do the inner work and we can, you know, process our feelings and we can look at what's there, and, you know, get to a point where we feel happy inside of our skin and experiencing life. But then when you start looking at yourself, your physical self, that's like, it brings up a whole bunch of stuff, and it's different for everyone. And it's kind of, and I mean, to say that I don't always love what I see in the camera either, but I also understand how a camera works. And, you know, there is, you know, people talk about, you know, taking selfies and, oh, they take them from certain angles to make them appear a certain way and all of that sort of stuff. Yes, that does happen. And even I do that to a certain degree because I know what a flattering angle is. But the thing is, just because it's an unflattering angle doesn't mean it's the truth either. Because here's the thing, right? A camera is not 100% facts. Even though I use it as a tool for us to see who we are and to see our self-expression, there's also this part that I love to share is that it's actually not a true representation either, because it's a camera, it's a piece of equipment. Like, it doesn't see like the human eye sees. You'll never see yourself the way that another human being will see you. It just like, and I mean that's also, internally as well, we're also wired differently, and that's so beautiful that we all have different perspectives and all that sort of stuff too. But see, that's the other thing is like understanding how a camera works and how your lighting, your clothing, your environment, the angles, the composition, all of that sort of stuff affects the way that you are captured in camera too. So really playing with this is more so of, I see it as it's creating art. It's not actually trying to get, an exact replica of you in this moment. It's you creating art of you in this moment. So yeah, you can, throw out the distortion of things, the perspective of things in your photos to create, to emphasize like the emotions that you're feeling right now and what you're actually experiencing in this moment. So that's another thing that that I teach with my work is that it's not 100% either. So if you're not liking the way that your photos look, even just learning, photography and about lighting and composition and angles and things like that is really going to help you to see, oh, I like when I take photos of myself like this, but I don't like it when I take photos of myself like that. And that is totally okay, because it's your self-expression, it's your art. And yeah, a camera, and depending on what kind of camera, like there's a whole thing, like your phone takes photos differently to how like other, bigger cameras take photos, lenses make a difference. There's a whole thing to it. So yeah, it's subjective, but it's just a beautiful way for you to be able to see your own self-expression and then to express yourself in other ways that you that combine, how you feel inside with how it looks visually for you. Like you can create that. So this is the thing, like, especially when we're creating personal brands, which, that's my area of, the women that I usually work with have personal brands, and their face is like their business, like it's them. So being able to be comfortable expressing themselves and capturing that to be able to show people who it is that they are is, really important. So that's a beautiful way of being able to combine like how your work feels for you, then how you can express that and show that to people. And you can use, different techniques with photography to emphasize certain things, to be like, this is how it feels for me. This is how I see it. This is how, it works for me, or this is how, this is like the experience that I'm trying to create for people. So
it's almost like a communication tool, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's not a truth telling tool. Like it's a communication tool. I mean, it's just like words, I suppose. Like, we can use words in ways to, emphasize certain things. So yeah, photography is the same. It's like the visual of that. Yeah.
But what I love was this morning when you share with me your top 5 strengths and you said, that's what you expected. I'm like, no, but I can so see it though, like through conversations with you. So I'm going to share your top 5 strengths. First of all, maximizer, individualization, futuristic, self-assured, and positivity. And I can so see that as a coach, a mentor, somebody who helps other people identify their self-expression, their good sides. Like, you see the good photos, the good angles, you see the beauty in people. And that's what a maximizer is about. That's what an individualization is about, because you see the goodness in people, and that just it fits your brand so perfectly, and I just love it. I just
That's good, huh?
love it. So I guess my question is, at what point did you realize you're not just teaching people how to take photos? In actual fact, you're actually this, I'm going to call you a coach. You're a coach that inspires other people to really see the potential and go to the next level through photos. So was there a turning point where you just go like, oh, wow.
I suppose a few years ago, maybe like the year before last, what was that? 2018, maybe. Because I started off because I switched from, because my business was Ivy and the Fox before that, when it was the photography business, and then when I started working with my coach Jana, I switched to Paula Ivy, my name, as the brand, and that's when I started helping other people take photos of themselves. And I just like I started off going, oh cool, I know my way around a camera, I know how to take photos, I know all the things, like I can really help people with that. So I started off, doing photography mentoring and being like, yeah, you can take photos like this, and you can do it like that, and this is how a camera works, and it was all very technical and stuff. And then and it was like the first sort of people that started that I started working with, they were already taking photos. So they were already kind of comfortable in front of the camera. And then they were like, oh, this is cool. It's like improving my skills, and like, oh, cool. I've never seen, whatever. And then I guess when I shortly after that, I started a membership, I think it was. And when I started doing the membership, I had quite a few people inside of the membership, and it started to get very more personal development sort of world stuff, and more of what was the journaling that I was doing, and what was the inner work that I was doing that was going along with all of this photography work and putting myself in front of the camera. Because there was people that had joined that had never taken their own photo before, and they didn't get in photos and they didn't like it, but they were like, I really want to, and I can see that it's fun, and I can see that it's joyful, and it can feel good, and I want that, but they'd never taken a photo before. And so that's when I realized that I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because that felt like that for me at the beginning too. Like totally did. Even though I was a photographer and I knew how to take photos, like when I first started seeing myself, I was like, oh no, that's weird and awkward, and I don't like it. Because my whole life I was the photographer, so I was hardly in any photos, because it was always like, Paula's a photographer, give her the camera, she'll take the photos. I'm like, yay, I don't have to be in any photos, this is awesome. But yeah, so I guess it was just through working with more people and just sharing my experience, and I'm like, it's just like, you just keep going. And I was sharing some of the things that was coming up for me, and I mean, stuff still comes up for me as well, because it depends on what's going on, especially having your own business, your own brand, like that's a whole journey, and you're always doing personal development work like every day around that, and like showing up and self-worth and confidence and like, oh, I'm thinking of this new thing, like, will anybody like it? Is this going to be successful? Like, what's going to happen today? Like and some days it feels really easy, and other days it feels really hard, and that affects the way that we feel in our bodies, and that affects the way that we self-express. So it's like you're not ever going to get to a point where you're like, oh, I love every single photo that I take of myself, because not every day feels the same. So I just started sharing what I was doing, and that's become like a major part of the work that I do, and the mentoring that I do when I work with my clients as well, is like I not only help them to be able to refine their style for their branding, their visual branding, and be like, this is the type of photos that I take and this is how I take them, and like we work on that. But a lot of it is actually around coming back to self-love and self-acceptance, and looking at what your strengths are and how you can express those, and how you can share what it is that you feel in here, and what it is that like a big part of it is like it helps you to dive deeper into who you are as a person and what your purpose is and what drives you and all of that sort of stuff too. So it really is, it's not like, I don't actually see myself as a photographer anymore. I see myself as a mentor, as a coach, but photography is the main tool that we use for that, for the way that I work. Like it just, and it's beautiful. It kind of like, it's a tool that helps you to really be seen by your audience too. So that's why a lot of the people that I work with, they're like, I don't understand what's happening. They're like, when I'm around you, like it just, I feel like, I get more engagement on my posts, I'm making more sales and things like that. And they're like, but my audience hasn't grown. And I'm like, yeah, it's because, you're communicating in a way that people are really connecting to who you are. And they're like, oh, I'm in, instead of you trying to be like, okay, I've got this thing that I'm wanting to sell. And like, I'll get the branding right and I'll find some images that really go with this vibe and blah, blah, blah. You're just showing up and you're like, this is me today and this is what I've got to share. Like, it just helps you to tap into more of that. That was actually something that Michelle, when she did my human design reading, she's like, you've got the energy there, or the channel, or I can't remember all the correct HD terms, but she's like, you've got the part that helps people to become successful. Like, you help people make money. And I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense, because people keep telling me that they work with
you want to make money.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm like, I kind of lead by example. I'm like, if you looked at my following, I don't have a big following at all. Like, it's really small. Like, I've got under 1,000 likes on my Facebook page, and I've got 1,800 people following me on Instagram, but yet I make 5-figure months. Like, I'm like, how does that even happen?
That's pretty awesome, hey?
Yeah. And like, if you looked at like, I often look at like the people that are in my sphere, that are in that I see online, and that all of that sort of stuff. I'm like, yeah, the majority of people, like, I'm working with them in some shape or form. It's just amazing. So I guess
that's also the thing about individualization, though. So with people with individualization traits, we don't want to just know you as a person. Like, I don't want to just know Paula Ivy as Paula Ivy. For me, it's like, I want to know what inspires you, what makes you tick. I want to know every little bit about you. And it's almost like, I don't know about you, but for me, I take picking gift so seriously. It has to be the right one, because there's no point picking it.
Oh, yeah.
For everybody, like opera style. Everybody gets the same gift. That's like the worst thing you can do to someone who's got individualization.
Oh, because I don't like when that happens to me. Like, when you're at like a celebration, and like, the family, they give everybody the same gift. I'm like, oh. For me, I'm like, I'd rather not give somebody a gift at all if it wasn't something that I truly felt like that they would love. I mean, I guess that's also the minimalist in me, because I'm like, I don't like to receive things unless I absolutely would use it and love it as well. So like I'd rather a hug. If you can find me anything, like just a big hug, to be like, oh my God. And just have that, I totally agree with that.
So that's definitely an individualization trait. And because you can build that deep connection with people, you don't need a large following. Everyone feel like you and I, when we first met, like, we barely know each other, but just like,
I know, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what photos do, right? Your work is helping so many people to be vulnerable out there. And that personal brand's the hardest because you have to be so vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. And to be able to do that, and I think that's why a lot of people feel connected if a person can really show their vulnerability.
Yeah. And I think there's also, I guess that's where personal brands can have a bit of a bad rap because it is such a vulnerable thing to do, that there are quite a few personal brands out there that are putting on a persona or like that are a certain way for their personal brand, but then they are different in their personal life. And I mean, that's okay, but it's kind of like, I don't know if you watched it. Did you watch the Paris Hilton documentary that was on? It's on YouTube, and she talked about this. I'm not a huge Paris Hilton person. Like, I didn't particularly like follow her or like anything. But I love documentaries. Like, that's my thing, documentary. But I watched it because somebody mentioned it to me, like, oh, you should watch it. And she was talking about how over the years she's built up this personal brand, and she's like, it's just not me. Like, it's like this act that I have to put on. People know me as this Paris, but I'm really like this Paris. And she's like, but I got so lost and I didn't know who I was, and then I burnt out and I got exhausted and all that sort of stuff. So like, if that's what, like, I get it. I totally get it, because it is so vulnerable putting yourself out here, and it doesn't feel comfortable for everybody to do that. So that, I guess, I mean, and to a degree, like, I don't share every little thing about my life either. Like, I am vulnerable and I do show up as myself, but at the same time, like, for example, if something major was happening, like, I'm not going to share every little detail about, everything. And I do feel like I have a responsibility with my energy, because I am such a big energy, that when I do show up, that I'm not in an energy where, I'm, maybe having a really bad day and all I can do is bitch and moan about certain things, because that's the energy I'm putting out there. And I'm like, I'd rather share energy that is coming from a place of, oh, this thing happened to me and I was really mad about it, but this is actually what I got out of it, rather than in the moment and be all like, at the internet and be like, I'm mad, and people be like, whoa, is she mad at me today? What's going on? So I guess in a way, like, I am still selective with what it is that I share, but it is me too. Like, it is a big part of who I am. And I totally get that too, if, people are a bit more guarded. But I guess what I found through my work is that the more that I connect to myself and take photos of myself and really build that connection with my physical expression, that makes me feel more comfortable sharing more parts of me online. So I guess maybe, part of that for some people might be, but I like, could be that they're not comfortable sharing their appearance in certain ways because they're not used to seeing themselves in that way. That whole,
That is so good, Paula. Thank you so much. Now, tell me, how can people work with you?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I've got so many ways.
Like a true generator.
Okay, yeah, like a true generator. I do have one-on-one mentoring packages, but I also have the Selforgraphy 30 Creative Mission that you mentioned that you're a part of, Lala, which is like a really low cost one-off like payment to come into my world and be immersed. It's a really cool community that we've got in there. It's there's 30 creative prompts and there's little videos that go with each one of me just showing you how I've set up to take a photo, some things that I was looking at, some photo tips and all of that sort of stuff. So that is kind of like a photo club where people come and they're like, okay, cool, I want to try and start taking some selfies, give me some inspiration. So there's like a creative prompt, something to, give you an idea of where to start to take a photo to try and spark something
And
for
it's
you.
not just that though. To me, it's like a very supportive sisterhood as well.
Oh yeah. See, this is the magic behind it, because I was like, I created this when I was traveling around Australia last year. So I ended up doing the big lab because I did like what I said, Jalna did it. I'm like, tell me how you did it. So we did do it. We did it last year. And I actually created this while we were traveling. I was taking obviously a lot of photos of myself as we were traveling around, because I wanted to be a part of the travel photos, because usually in the past it was always it just looked like it was just my husband on holiday without me, because all the photos would always be of him. So yeah, I was taking photos every day, and so I decided to document the way that I was taking the photos, and then I was like, oh, this would make a cool bundle. So I had 30 of them, and I bundled them together, and I was going to do it as like yeah, you buy the bundle, you get access to the bundle, here you go, sort of thing. But I was like, oh, maybe I should just put it into a Facebook group and see how that goes, because I was actually having technical difficulties with trying to put the video. I was trying to put the videos onto Vimeo, so people would go into Vimeo and view the video, sort of thing, and then put them on like a page on my website. And I was like, oh, this is just taking too long. I'm like, I'll just put it on a Facebook
So
group,
much work.
and then I'll do that later. But then the magical thing was that so many people bought it that it became this beautiful community in there, that people were sharing their photos they were taking as well. So if you go in there, there's not only my 30 examples of photos, there's like hundreds of them in there, because there's hundreds of women in there now taking selfies every day and sharing them. And it's just so beautiful to witness each other in there, and to see like, okay, that cool. The prompt today was like window, for example. And I'll be like, okay, that's Paula's example. But then you can also see hundreds of others of examples too. So you're like, oh, wow. Okay, so I've got so many ideas for how I can take that photo.
And how everybody just interpret them all differently. Like the typical one is you've got looking up and you've got looking down. But that could be me looking up or the camera looking up. And this just the variety of photo that comes out. Or like the day when I couldn't find a window, I was like, guys, I can't find a window. It's so much fun, but I've also made so many friends just in there, and now I will just pop in there and just for the fun of it, really.
Yeah, it's kind of like a photo club. Like we're going out every day taking photos and sharing them and talking about them. Like it just is really, really cool. It's a beautiful space that if you want to dip your toe in to see how fun it can actually be. And actually, I do have my flagship course, which is called Selfie School, which is a 5-week program. And I think there was already, when I launched that, there was already about 80 people or 70 people inside of Selfie School. And they were all like, oh, I want that too. And so they all started jumping into that one as well. So it was really cool, because it was like, Selfie School and the Selfography 30 Creative Mission kind of go hand in hand, because Selfie School is like learning all the nuts and bolts about taking photography, like learning photos, and then also doing the inner work and all of that sort of stuff. But then the Creative Mission kind of gives you that little extra creativity boost as well, if you're already inside Selfie School. But then if you tried the Creative Mission, you're like, I want to learn more, then people are jumping into Selfie School. So it's kind of like this cool little
goes hand in hand
that I got happening there as well.
And what about your video courses as well? Because I've been dying to sign up for the next live round.
Oh yeah, I've got my video vibing course as well. The next live round of that one should be early next year. I haven't officially got launch date for that, but yeah, that's an amazing course as well. We dive into obviously video with that, because I do like to make myself some videos. I'm not a professional editor with video, but I do really like to create videos, especially for things that I'm launching. And for me, that's why I call it video vibing, is because I'm like, it's just another way for me to show people the vibe of something. Like, how do I capture the vibe of something? Like, a photo is great, but with video, you've also got sound and music and movement and all of that sort of stuff going on as well. So it was just me taking the work that I did with photos and like sort of taking it up a notch. And also videos work so well on socials as well. Like, so I don't do all like the special effects and all that sort of stuff. Like, my videos are more like it's taking that documentary style of photography and putting it into video, where I sort of like, you know, document about, you know, this is what I'm creating, this is what I want it to feel for you, sort of thing. Or yeah, I started off doing professional dance videos, like just fun stuff. So yeah, that's a really cool course as well. That one we go into, yeah, video and setting it up and what you need to be able to make videos easily, how to do them on your phone, how to do them on your computer as well. Some cool stuff that I've been learning, and I'm always developing my video skills as well. So each round I've got something cool and new to share as well about what I've been creating. So that's a really cool course as well.
So I'm gonna link Paula's business page on the descriptions once we jump out of this. You guys can all check it out. I highly recommend it. I have definitely benefited a whole lot, and it just gives your social presence, I'm going to call them social media presence, a whole lot of different dimensions.
Yeah,
which is great.
Definitely.
Your work is so important on this planet,
and
I really want to thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's dimensional. I just want to say one more thing when you said that before, is that I was talking in my mastermind the other day, and it was like, if you really look at the way people communicate on social media, it's mostly through photos. It's mostly through photos. And if you can share photos that really connect to who you are as a person, like they're all going to, I was about to say they're all going to go gangbusters, but it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, you can share posts that are just words and people are like, yeah, cool. And you can share like photos as well. But when you'll notice that like sometimes you share photos and people are like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And everybody's all over it. And then you share other photos and you're like, oh, okay. A lot of it has to do with like your intention behind the photos as well. So, yeah, I was just talking to my mastermind the other day, and they're like, it's photos. It's like people buy because of photos. People interact because of photos, you know? So it's a big part. So it, yeah.
Well, it's getting the feels, as we say, out into something that's tangible. And really, when you master the energy behind photos, it's all energetic work, and that's so much the inner work as well.
Yeah, exactly right. That's why the inner work is so important, because it is. That's what actually, when people talk about, you know, attraction marketing or being magnetic online and all of that sort of stuff, it's your energy, and that's what actually shines through in your photos, is the energy. So, yeah, it's a big part of it. Thank
you so much, Paula. Thank you so much. And I look forward, hopefully we can have another catch up like this another day, because we just can't stop talking about all the things. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching the replay, make sure you hashtag Range Woman and go and check out Paula Ivy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.